There's a great deal to be learned about perspective when you're drawing a kitchen, and this one has some architectural details that are really going to be helpful. We've got a little partial gable here and 2 skylights. We also have a hood directly over our stove, and that will be more interesting elements to have on the ceiling, which we rarely get to deal with. We also have some recessed lights and also 3 lights above our island. In setting up your page, don't forget on your large 18 by 24 inch cartridge paper to place the right edge of your grid over at the edge of your cartridge paper, your right edge, and you have a vanishing point there. But we don't have a vanishing point on the other side. So we'll need to find out where that is. And the only way to do that is to extend your eye level. For this job, you're going to need that longest ruler that you have. You can't really do this job without it. So, and for most of the drawing itself, it's going to come in handy. So extend your eye level. Notice that our eye level is now at 6 feet, not our usual 5. So that's going to make a very big difference. The reason for that is that in a kitchen there are a lot of top surfaces that we need to see, and this will allow us to do that. Now we want to follow the lines of the floor at this point and see what we get. Now this grid has been photocopied, as you know. There's going to be some distortion, so we've got to find the best point that will allow us to cope with the rest of the lines of the grid in a reasonably accurate way. So here we go. That's working quite fine now for the lines on the floor, both the faraway lines over here and the nearby lines over here. That's lining up quite nicely. How about the ceiling? We'll have a look over there. Okay, that seems to be working quite well. So we're off to a good start here. So expect that to happen. Leave 3 inches down from the top of your cartridge paper to the top of your grid. Align the right hand side of your grid up with the right hand side of your cartridge paper. Extend your eye level and use the lines of the floor. I'll put a dotted line here to make this a little more obvious. Use that to locate your second vanishing point, your left vanishing point, right up here on the horizon line. And then check it again by checking a more distant floor line and see, is that reasonably lined up with that dot? And then check your ceiling on your right wall and see if that is lining up reasonably well with that dot. Okay, so that's our left vanishing point. This is our right vanishing point over here. The best place to start is on the floor plan. So we'll map it out on the floor and then do the ceiling and then begin to drop things down from the ceiling and bring things up from the floor. You have this to work with. You also have this that describes the heights and depths and widths of everything. And you also have 2 elevations. This one, it's facing the wall that has the clock on it and the window and this cabinetry, this lower cabinetry, the base cabinetry. And then you'll see the side of this the built-ins around the refrigerator. So that's the side, you see. And this one faces the other way. So we see the front of the fridge, the built-in above, and we see this upper cabinetry and the base. What I love about this kitchen is that it isn't crowded with lots of upper cabinetry, so there's room for variation. It's not a typical kitchen. We're looking into this corner. This corner is that corner. What's different about our other grids as well is that this has a 10-foot ceiling, which will really be helpful when we put our partial gable in. So we're going to start from this corner. If we're working on this wall, this is extra long. The kitchen cabinets are 2 feet wide, so we can come out, we go out 2 feet and go all the way to the back. And it doesn't hurt to cross at the back. We can map out our window as well. It's, now we don't include the thickness of the wall. We start counting inside the room. 4, and I'm doing it on the floor so that it makes it easier to bring it up later. And it goes from 4 more feet, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have the width of the window, and then you can check to see that you have 3 boxes left over. So 4 for the window, 3 left over. Now the cabinetry on the other side is also 2 feet deep, and it goes up to 10 feet. Okay, and then you check to see that you have 3 boxes and a half left over for the built-in refrigerator. Left over. Now you can't see my left vanishing point, but even though I have lines to follow on the grid, I'm using it as well to guide my line. Our sink is 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes and 2 boxes across, and I'm going right from the corner again, the safest thing to do. And 2 across, and that leaves us 3 boxes on the other side, so 36 inches and 36 inches on the other side. That's very good for a sink. It gives you to have counter space on either side. That's a very good number to have. And we're going to go 1.5 feet deep. So any less counter space on the other side would be, there wouldn't be enough. And I'm using my vanishing point again to make sure I've got this. The island is 4 feet away here. That's a bit risky, that's a little far, but we have this stove here, so you do want to have an element of safety so that anyone passing in between the counter space and the stove, there's room there. So over here now we have 3 feet. That's acceptable, that's good, so that even if the fridge, one of the fridge doors is open, there's still enough space that someone could move by. It's in line with this cabinetry, so that's very helpful. And it's 4 boxes wide. And it's 6 feet deep. And then you check to see that you have the 3 feet that we need here. You have the 4 feet we need here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, you're using your vanishing points even though you have lines here to work with. These grids have had to be photocopied, and photocopiers have a little bit of a problem when they scan. They usually distort one side and not the other, so you do your best with the given points, but sometimes they'll seem a little off. You just make it look correct. The fridge, there's about 1/4 foot for ventilation. You have to have, the fridge is actually very hot at the back, so you have to allow for space for air around, and probably some at the back as well. Now this fridge is a little bit wider than normal. It has 2 doors. Usually they're less than 3 feet wide, but when we get down to it, it will end up being about just maybe a little less than 3 feet. So what I mapped out here, I mapped out the 3 feet that we have going across. Then I need to leave a little space, and I need to leave a little space on the other side. So I'm going over from the 10 feet, I'm going 1, 2, 3 and a half. So 1, 2, 3 and a half. So I'm going to make this mark, and this mark is going to be the far side of the built-in cabinetry that's around the fridge. Okay, and fridges are just about 2 feet deep too. So this is looking rather small, but it's right. The fridges seem somehow very large, but in reality they're not as large as they look. So and they're only 5 feet tall usually. But then nowadays, now you could find almost any proportion of refrigerator you wanted. So we're just going as usual by standard measurements. Okay, now on the island itself, we have a lot going on. There's this, and then the stools tuck underneath. So we need to map that out as well. And it is, you can see here, 1.5 feet from the end. So I find 1/2 foot and mark this line off. And you'll notice I'm putting things that involve the top on the bottom here and bringing them up. Again, as with everything we do, when something isn't against the wall, you need to bring the wall measurements from the back here and then from the bottom up. Our stools. Now, they're going to be rounded, so we don't really stand much of a chance. If you look at 1.5 feet here, we're in an area of distortion. So 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet would give us a seriously distorted box. Take some off. Take some off and make this square. It also gives us a little space for this not to be right up against the wall, right up against this portion of our island. So this box, 1.5 by 1, rather than 1.5 by 1.5. We'll have a much better chance of making a circle within there. The next job is to find our stove and our hood. This is also our hood for our above our stove, our ventilation hood. So I'm looking now at the back of the island. I'm coming in 1.5 feet, and I'm going over another foot and then another 1/2 foot. And I'm going to go back 2 feet. So I'm looking at something like that for this box. Again, I'm putting it on the floor first, and then I'm going to bring it up to the ceiling. And we might start working on our ceiling detail with just this particular thing to get the hood in the right place. We also have some task lighting that we have to put up as well. 3 lights, so we can begin to put those up as well.